It's a grizzly.
Should we get out of here?
No. We're gonna watch and listen.
Hello there, everybody. Welcome. Hello there, Gary, Denise, Nada, Leonard, Cindy, Thomas, Denise. Hello there, everybody. How you doing there, Justin?
Hey, I'm doing all right tonight, Grizz. Doing all right. Living the dream.
Roger. Welcome, everybody. Nice to see you there. So what are we talking about tonight?
Well, tonight we're gonna do some traveling. We're gonna visit a couple of different continents, and tonight we're going to examine some stories of giant snakes. In the news recently, if anybody pays attention to stuff like this, there was announced that they had discovered a new giant species of anaconda.
Interesting.
So I kind of got into that, and I believe Brian Barber, I don't know if Brian's here tonight yet.
No,
He
he's
had
not
sent me
feeling
some.
too good. I actually talked to him, everybody, a couple hours ago. He's still earning some weather, so.
Okay, well, we'll make sure we keep Brian in our prayers, and we'll kind of dedicate this to him because he's always sending me good information on shows and stuff. And I was looking at this, and then I saw the news, and it kind of attracted my attention. It's one of the things I've always had a fascination with is giant animals. Being raised in the Amazon where I was at, I had my own share of experiences with giant animals and unknown animals, and it's always kind of held a special place for me. And snakes, I've had my share of experiences with snakes, but what they were announcing was this new giant species of anaconda, and I checked it out. And all it really was, I hate to say all it really was because that sounds kind of playing it off, but basically they just discovered a genetic difference between a northern green anaconda and a regular green anaconda. And apparently it was like over a 5% difference genetically, which in the genetic world is a huge difference, even though they are identical in every other way. Except for they're saying that the northern variant tends to be larger than the southern variant of the green anaconda. So that's why they were having this big announcement of giant anaconda discovered. So it was kind of I felt a little misleading headline, but it was still there. And so that just got me reminiscing and digging on some of my old favorite stories and things that happened in my life, and just, love big animals. So I thought we'd talk about giant snakes tonight. Generally, there's two specific stories that we can dig into. There's a lot of stories out there, but two that has enough research and background that we can kind of delve into. And one is the giant snake photograph from the Congo, sometimes called the Vietnam photo. I'm not really sure why. And then there is giant snakes from the Amazon, specifically an incident reported by Percy Fawcett, who was an explorer. So we're going to kind of go over those tonight. We'll start in the Amazon with Percy Fawcett, just because, for one, it's an older account, and because that's near and dear to my heart, being raised in the Amazon. So, all right. So Carver saw the article, the anaconda. It was really cool. So being born and raised in the Amazon, anacondas were part of our normal life. Like that was one of the animals that we had to look out for. It was one of the few animals that we consider dangerous. Okay. Mostly because I was just a little guy back then, and I was definitely on the menu, and I wasn't the only kid out there. But anacondas were considered a shoot on sight animal for us. We considered them that dangerous. So I wanted to show you real quick something that we had to deal with growing up. I wanted to show you first. This here is the lake shore, the lake where I grew up on. So the first house that I personally remember was out here, and it was a house on stilts living out in the middle of the lake, which would have kept us safe from the Indians. And we have one photograph right here. This was an anaconda that my dad killed. The guys killed when they saw it. This specimen here measured about 17 feet from what Dad said. And as you can see, is a very heavy-bodied snake. That's a 17-footer. It would have been dangerous for me or anything my size. And Dad considered this one kind of middle size, kind of a teenager, as he would put it. And so dealing with these giant snakes, like I said, was just kind of part of our normal, everyday kind of life. But the stories that come out of the jungle and the Amazon are of much larger creatures. Now, the largest anaconda to ever have been officially recorded was out of Brazil, and it measured in at 33 feet and weighed a whopping 880 pounds. Just a massive creature.
Wow.
Massive creature. Yeah, right. And there's stories of bigger ones. And you can find them. I had sent Grizzly a clip that we decided not to show. I don't know if anybody's familiar with River Monsters with Jeremy Wade. That was an absolutely awesome show. And he was down in the Amazon fishing for Arapaima. And he came across the village. And in the village, they were talking about a giant snake that they had. And he went and talked to a witness about this giant snake. And they were saying this thing was just absolutely massive. In fact, there was one village in the area that had a giant snake living around it, and the whole village moved because they were so terrified of this animal. And you have to think about that for a second. There, again, living down there, you're used to large snakes. You're used to dangerous animals. It's part of your everyday life. But to have you be so terrified that you move the entire village because this snake is so big and they're so scared of it, that says something, guys. That's just, just amazing to me. So they talk about these stories and it's in film, right? We've all heard of the movies Anaconda, 1, 2, and 3 or whatever. And I find it interesting in the Anaconda movie because John Voight, one of the characters there, talks about an Indian tribe that has a legend of a snake that was so big it blocked the flow of a river and it was like running into a wall. And what I found fascinating is when he named the tribe, he named it as the Maku, which is actually the name of the tribe that I grew up with. So I immediately latched onto that. Now, I don't know if my tribe specifically had any large snakes legends. We never came across them, so we never heard about anything like that. But again, that would be more probably of a language barrier, and we're just still learning their culture when we were down there. But they did have other legends like we've talked about before. And that kind of brings us to Percy Fawcett. If you don't know who Percy Fawcett was, he was a jungle explorer, essentially, a cartographer and archaeologist. He was, I believe, got to the rank of lieutenant colonel. He was in the Royal Air Force, the British Royal Air Force. He was part of the Belgium military. Very well-trained, well-respected observer and explorer and a naturalist. And he would go and explore the jungle. That was his place to explore, was the Amazon. And there was like over 200 different species that he described and discovered, including some very unusual ones that scientists thought were fake. There's no possible way. But eventually they came out and discovered them as an actual real animal where it wasn't him just pulling their leg. And I think it's a very important part of the story and understanding that this guy, took his job seriously. He is also known and famous for being lost in the Amazon jungle and disappearing because he was searching for, they call it the lost city of Z, kind of like an El Dorado, supposed giant city lost in the Amazon. And he was one of the explorers looking for that. And he tells a story of during his travels coming along this lake. And I'm going to pull it up so I can read it here real quick just to make sure I have it correct, because it's a really great story. Um, so basically, they were traveling along the Rio Abuna, they called it, and they saw the large triangular head of the snake near the bow of the boat. Again, he's familiar with his anacondas. In fact, they said it was a giant anaconda. So he took his rifle and they shot it. And it says that he shot it about 10 feet below the head. Then the snake started to thrash and struggle, and they realized that this thing was much larger than they could possibly have imagined. By the time this snake finally died, it had partially crawled up onto the shoreline to get away. And as far as was possible to measure, and this is a direct quote from the source, the length of 45 feet lay out of the water, and yet 17 feet were still left in the water, making it a total length of 62 feet. So we're talking a 62-foot snake, almost double what the largest possible snake was that they have found and recorded. Wow. Now, that's, I know, right? And he recorded this and submitted it to the Royal Geographic Society, but they just ignored him. They were just like, nah, there's no possible way. But it's like, why would this guy make up something like that? That doesn't make any sense to me. And to me, it's the best documented story of finding one of these giant snakes. Why did he shoot it? It doesn't specify. I'm sorry, Care Bear Bard of Cards asked, why did he shoot it? So doesn't specify. It could be the fact that they saw the large head and they knew it was dangerous. They have been known to attack people. They've been known to attack boats. In 1977, a large anaconda attacked a canoe and killed the 3 people that was in it. They are highly aggressive animals, territorial animals. And like I said, for us growing up, they were considered a shoot on sight animal if the kids were around or anything like that. So it doesn't surprise me that he would shoot something like that. Plus, he's a naturalist. That's what he's out there doing. He's exploring. He's collecting specimens. I'm sure he recognized the fact that its head was exceptionally large. And it said he shot it 10 feet away from the spine or from the head. And so he knew it was a large animal. He just had no idea that it would measure out to 62 feet. Which, again, we're talking, 30 feet longer than the largest specimen ever recorded. Now, the funny thing with snakes and a lot of reptiles, and this goes into a lot of the research into cryptozoology when you're talking reptilians, giant lizards, and snakes and stuff like that, is that reptiles don't ever stop growing. Once they reach a certain point, they don't have very many or any natural enemies. So unless something takes them out, like accident or sickness or anything like that, they can just keep going. They just keep right on growing. And so having something like that in the jungle, it really doesn't surprise me. I firmly believe that is one of the cryptids, whether it may or may not be actually discovered. I believe it has one of the highest possibilities of existing, would be the giant snakes. And they're in the fossil record. In Colombia in 2012, some of you may have heard about this. They discovered the fossilized remains of a snake they called Titanoboa. And doing some reading on that. Now, they estimate that one to grow to be about 50 feet in length, anywhere from 40 to 50 feet. And I was just reading up on how they did the calculations and this and that. And it's based on just a lot of metrics, size of the vertebrae that they found, and where they think the vertebrae would have been inside the animal, like as far as what number in the sequence and all this kind of stuff. So even that one they're talking is 50 feet would still be smaller than the one Percy was talking about. And when you talk to the natives that live down in South America, all through the Amazon, you occasionally come across reports where they're talking upwards of 100 feet. And that just kind of blows my mind. And you can there's all kinds of books about it. You can go on Amazon and you can read all kinds of books, and I'm sure you'll hear about the Percy Fawcett account. that's one of those ones where I'm thinking I might dig into and see if I can't track down some of his original writings, or at least copies of his original writings, and see what they actually say and what they specify, just to kind of, I don't know, my own curiosity, kind of like I did with the Viking Bigfoot connection. So that's that story from down there. And again, native tribes down there have reports of these animals, and I'm a big believer in the idea. If you want to know what's out in the area, you talk to the locals, and they'll tell you what's out in an area. And to the locals, giant snakes aren't folklore. They're not myth. They're not supernatural. They're part of the fauna of the area, the flora and fauna of the area. Now they're rare. You know, you don't hear stories of people wandering into a nest of them or anything like that size, but the stories are still there. You know, so from there we're going to talk about the Congo picture, or sometimes called the Vietnam picture. This is a famous one because a photo was taken of it. The Congo snake, they call it. And I'm sure many of you are going to be very familiar with this photo. Let me get it pulled up here. Basically, the story is a helicopter pilot flying over the Congo was just came across this snake crawling along the ground, and so he took a picture of it from the helicopter. And the pilot that did this is a decorated pilot, not just a random person. His name was Colonel Remy van Leerde. I probably totally butchered the pronunciation, but that's what I do. He was a World War II flying ace, part of the Royal Air Force. I think I was confused earlier. I said Percy Foss was part of the Air Force. He was not the Air Force. This guy was the Air Force. He was part of the military, and he was decorated and all that. This guy was a World War II pilot. He enlisted in 1935, was a trained observer. A lot of credentials. He ended up being a test pilot for all kinds of stuff. He was highly decorated for dogfights and a combat, fighter. And from there, he went on to different tests and all this kind of stuff. And so that's kind of what happened was he was out flying in the Belgian Congo. And this was, let me get the date here. And he came on in 1980 is when he released this. Actually came on to a TV show. And he explained that while he was out flying, he came across this creature. It was about 50 feet long with a triangular jaw. He tried to approach the snake in the helicopter. He tried to fly over and get down on top of it, but it raised itself up around 10 feet. And the passenger in the chopper managed to take the picture. There's some problems with the story. People say, well, it's not possible. And, the weight of a snake that size, he wouldn't be able to raise up 10 feet and do all this kind of stuff. But I don't really I think that's just people being skeptical. I don't hear the validity in that statement very well at all. If it's a large snake, it's going to have the musculature and the ability to be able to do that, Sorry, I'm having a hard time pulling up the photo. I had saved it, but for some reason it's not coming up for me in a photo that's good enough to see. This one will work. Okay. And again, the reason I like this story is because it is documented and it has been researched. This isn't just an anecdotal, oh, this guy out here saw this thing, and that was it. So we're going to pull this up here. And nope, it's not showing it. All right, let me switch. Sorry, guys, I am struggling tonight.
Oh, it happens.
There we go. All right. So there is the photograph. It's kind of hard to see here. You can pull it up and Google it, and it's come up very easy for you. But here is the snake down here that he took the picture of. Now, a lot of research has been done on this picture, cryptozoologically speaking. Bernard Heuvelmans did a research into it. Ivan T. Sanderson did research into it. It is absolutely fascinating because what they did is they looked at different features in the landscape here. They looked at the trees and shrubs. It is believed that, I believe it's in this corner, that there's termite mounds. And so what they did is they did an analysis based on estimated heights of the topography. And what was interesting is because the guy that took the picture originally claimed it was about 50 feet in length. But when Ivan T. Sanderson analyzed the photo, he came up with a number closer to 200 feet. Based on the idea of the termite mounds would have been massive, about 50 feet on the large size. And so that's what he was saying, is up to 200 feet. Personally, I would probably go more towards the guy that saw it and witnessed it, right? On his estimation, like I said, he was a trained observer and a fighter pilot. And so distance and measurements is something that he would have been really, really trained on. But that is a fascinating picture. I encourage anybody to get in there and take a look at it and kind of investigate and dig it out a little bit. It's another one where I like to go back and find some original documentation on it. I did come across some letters on this one from the peoples investigating it, which I thought was absolutely fascinating. And again, I thought I had that one saved up for me, but apparently I didn't. Here we go. Okay. So we're going to switch. So here is a letter from some of the people investigating it. And it's supposedly from a CIA captain, Lorenzo Burrows, did a photo analysis. And here is a letter or documentation talking about it, where it was sent to Captain Burrows here and talking about it. And here they discuss the size of the trees and the location of the termite mounds. And they very nicely did a transcription for us to be able to read it better, because obviously that's a little fuzzy for us. But basically they go into an analysis of, hey, this is what we're thinking with it. There's the trees up over here are growing, and they call them the African acacias, and so they can kind of get an idea. Black spots in the upper left-hand quadrant are termites' nests and their shadows, so we should be able to see those. And so again, here's they claiming that the estimate would make the snake about 200 feet long. And then it goes on to say there's been countless reports from the Kamina, which was the capital city in the province in the Republic of Congo, of giant snakes. And we have the part skeletons of presumed extinct forms from that size of the rib cage should give normal proportions of about 200 feet long. And so that is proof of this photo's authenticity to be a great triumph. And so even here it talks about reports from the local areas of snakes that size, 200 feet in length. And again, here's a little bit better picture of what they're talking about there. So what do you guys think on that, Grizz? And any thoughts on giant snakes? What do you think, it's possible? Like, what do you think?
They're out there. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Let me see. What do you guys think? I saw a few comments in here. Penny Van said, I had a 6-foot boa and he could lift half his body up to get on the sofa. And I know he could have stood on 2/3 of his body length. Yeah, absolutely. Snakes are known for that. There's some snakes that can strike extreme distances because they can raise up and move that much of their body at any one time. One of the things I have a hard time with with skeptics and even scientists that are talking about stuff is this idea that the animal is so big it can't do something. And the reason I don't understand that is because everything on the animal gets bigger. The musculature gets bigger, the organs get bigger, the bones get bigger, they're going to be denser, right? All this kind of stuff. So to sit here and say, well, it's too big, there's no way it could lift its body up like that, I don't understand how that assessment is true. Scientifically, if I could find a scientific explanation as to why, well, then sure. But just because it's heavier, yeah, but the muscles are going to be that much stronger on top of it. So why did that correlation, that ratio should still be there, you know? Penny Van, yeah, they both raise up and use all that muscle mass to launch themselves forward. Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, we have these creatures in the fossil records, so they know they exist. This is not something completely unknown. This is just something that I think Western scientists, I guess you could say, or modern science people just kind of reject because they don't have any experience of it, because they've never seen it. It can't exist. And we come across that all the time when it comes to any Fortean research, right? Just because we don't see it, it doesn't exist. And I think that's absolutely ridiculous. Care Bear, those black mambas in Africa are terrifying enough. Yeah, wild place indeed, like the Amazon. Yeah, absolutely. There's all kinds of terrifying snakes out there. And to put the limit on it as well, yeah, they can grow to 33 feet. That's the biggest one we've ever found, but there's no way it could grow to 50 feet. Well, what if that snake lived another 20 years, 30 years? You know, we know that they don't stop growing their entire life. Penny Van, their growth is controlled by food available, how often they feed, and size of environment. Yeah, and temperature is a big one, humidity, all that kind of stuff. Absolutely, absolutely. That's a big part of it. When studying the Titanoboa, one of the big discussions that they were having, a debate between different types of experts, was the idea of what would be the average ambient temperature they would have to exist to get that large. And they were arguing that it have to be, a lot hotter than what it was now. And they've had some good points for that. But a lot of people were saying, well, maybe not. An animal that big is going to have a higher ambient temperature anyway. So maybe it didn't need such a hot outside temperature. And so they were saying that something that size potentially could live in the current climate and in the tropics. Obviously not, northern Canada, but we're talking equatorial Amazon and equatorial Africa and all this, that their size would not be detrimental with the heat and everything. And if you look at food sources, I mean, come on. Down in the Amazon, there's tapirs that are basically giant hogs that they could feed on. And wild boars that they could feed on, and caiman that they could feed on. So the food sources are plentiful. Absolutely plentiful. Penny Van, already spread halfway up the state of Florida. Oh, we're talking about like the escaped invasive species of snakes down there. The pythons, the reticulates, the Burmese and all that. They just caught, what was it, a 20-some footer down here in Florida. And it was the largest one. I think this is the largest one they had caught in the wild down here in Florida. And it was like 22 feet. 22 feet, which is pushing their range. They can get, I believe, up to 36 feet is one of the largest recorded. I believe it was a Burmese. I could be mistaken. Might be reticulated, but I think it was a Burmese. They are considered longer than anacondas. As a species, their maximum length is longer than an anaconda, but an anaconda is the heaviest species overall. And so when you look up the largest snake, it all kind of depends on how they're defining largest. Jennifer McDaniel, snakes are the devil. This is a contention we have. I would love to have a snake or two as a pet, but Jennifer's telling me it's never going to happen. W. Leonard Athos, I'm probably butchering that one too. Didn't know they had established themselves. Pythons, yes, I read about them all the time, but I didn't know anacondas had established. They're not really finding very many anacondas down here. It's basically the Burmese and reticulated pythons. They have found Penny Van. They found anacondas dead due to trying to eat adult crocs and not being able to fit the entire croc. That was a famous photo that went around for a while. And yeah, I mean, any of these snakes are going to thrive down here in Florida. That's where I'm at right now, guys, is down in Florida. But the Burmese and the retics are the ones that are causing all the trouble down here. Because again, there's no natural predator to them once they get to a certain size. It's not going to happen. And there's plenty of food sources for them. Another interesting thing that I've looked into, and again, I have noticed, and I don't know why, a lot of the things that I have looked at in the past are really hard to find nowadays online. So I don't know if it's Google algorithm stuff. I have no idea how any of that works. But there are a lot of stories of giant snakes here in the US. There really is. And it even goes back to Native American lore of giant snakes. A lot of the northern tribes in the US discuss what they call a horned snake, and very specific on these creatures. And I got a little information on that one. What I was really looking for, and it might have been in one of my books, possibly, maybe, and I'd have to look for it, where there is a specific sighting in Pennsylvania that I thought was really fascinating. But according to Wikipedia, the horned serpent appears in the mythologies of many cultures, including the Native American peoples. The Muskogee, they call it the horned snake or the tie-dye snake. But essentially, let me get to where it talks about it. So those that know, the Uktena is a great snake, as large around as a tree trunk with horns on its head and a bright blazing crest like a diamond on its forehead and scales glowing like sparks of fire. It has rings or spots of color along its whole length, and it cannot be wounded except for shooting in the seventh spot from the head, because under this spot are its heart and its life. The blazing diamond is called Ulunsuti, and he who can win it may become the greatest wonder worker of the tribe. But it is worth a man's life to attempt it, for whoever is seen is so dazzled by the bright light that he runs towards the snake instead of trying to escape it. And as if that was not enough, the breath of it is so pestilential that no living creature can survive should they inhale the tiniest bit of the foul air. Even to see the snake asleep is death, not to the hunter himself, but to his family. So this creature was so feared that even just looking at it would kill you and your family, kind of a thing. And it's interesting because the different tribes have different legends of this creature. The Muskogee people say it's an underwater serpent covered with the iridescent scales, single large crystal in its forehead. So the description is the same. And it even says that the crystals are prized for their power. And it talks about the horns were used in medicine. The snake lives in the water, has horns like a stag, but it says it's not a bad snake. It doesn't hurt people. But it seems to have a magnetic power over the game, which is, again, the same hypnotic thing that they were talking about on the other ones. So these ideas of giant snakes are also, a U.S. thing. It's also a U.S. thing. Leonard, Justin, I'm near Fort Lauderdale. Do you think anacondas have a breeding population in South Florida? I mean, I have not read any evidence of that, Leonard, but if there are, I don't see why not. The South Florida Everglades swamps and mangroves and then just the whole area down here would be perfect for them. I know there's peacock bass down here, which is a South American native. I know there's, pacu in some of the waterways down here and stuff. So an anaconda would fit right in. It really wouldn't surprise me in the least. But I don't have any evidence of it, so I'm not going to say yes or no, but it's very, very possible, very likely. There are some amazing stories. If I could find them, I was really trying hard to pull them up. A lot of the eastern states and into the Midwest have stories of giant snakes. And we're talking, again, anywhere from 30 feet to 150 feet. You know, we got to factor in some exaggeration factor and stuff. And the thing is, the American ones, again, a lot of them are described the same way. They're generally dark in color on the back and very light to gray on the belly, very much like a black racer or a black rat snake or a black mamba. Leonard, can they crossbreed with pythons? I don't believe they can. They are different type. Boas, they are in the constrictor family, but boas are different than anacondas. I do not believe they can crossbreed. However, I'm not 100% on that. I think it's very similar to, different other types of animals that can't actually crossbreed successfully. But that's something they'll have to look up. I'm not a herpetologist. I love animals and I love snakes, but I haven't studied all the technicalities of them. Also, with these American ones, they're not described heavy body like constrictors. They're just described as really, really long. And like I said, dark black on the top and then the gray white underbellies. And that led some people to believe that these are just giant, again, like a black racer or a black rat snake, if you're familiar with those ones. I saw a report from Pennsylvania where there was like a 16-footer that was known for hanging around on this mountaintop, as they called it, a bald area. Rebecca, I got to show this one. This show this close to bedtime is the stuff that nightmares are made of. I'm sorry. I apologize for that. Care Bear, remember the photo of 15-foot Eastern Diamondback? Fangs were enormous. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I remember I heard a story one time out of Texas where, and I think this might be an urban legend story, but I'm going to tell you guys anyway, that they were driving down a dirt Texas road and there was kind of a log over the road. And so they ran it over and thump. But then when they looked back, it was crawling away and they realized it was a giant snake. And given Texas, it was probably a giant rattler, is what they would say. And the thing is why I say it could be an urban legend is because that's a common scenario. You're traveling down a road and you see a log across it, and then all of a sudden you realize it's a snake. I've heard stories of hunters, walking through the woods. They sit down on a log to take a break, and they realize the log is actually a snake. So that's kind of a common thing, and it's possible reality, but that's usually a mark of an urban legend kind of a story. But the idea of one of these giant snakes here in the U.S. also fascinates me, and I think that would be terrifying. Can you guys imagine coming across a 20 or 30 foot like black racer? I don't think so. Anything else from the audience? Anything else going on? Any other questions? I know I wrapped up kind of fast here. We're going to have to talk for 20 minutes. Let me see. Who else? Penny Van. From what I've read, the season for hunting the invasive Florida snakes is all year, all times. Yeah, they do kind of have an open season on them, but there is, I don't know, like roundups they do. They'll have competitions and roundups certain times a year to try and, garner interest, and they'll have lotteries for licenses and stuff like that to be able to go get them, different things like that. Penny Van, I love all creatures, but know enough to keep my distance from money. Yeah, you know what? That's actually something that people ask me a lot about when they found out that I was raised in the Amazon. Like, wasn't I scared? Like all these dangerous animals out there and dangerous creatures. And the reality of it is, no, I wasn't. We were taught rules. We were taught, if it's a snake, you don't mess with it unless you absolutely 100% know what it is. And even then, it's probably not a good idea. If it's a spider, it could probably kill you. I mean, we just had basic rules for everything. And just like most animals, they're not trying to come around people. They tend to hide from people. They hear you coming through the woods. Most of them are going to try and get away from you. And that's true. We were taught how to be safe. We were taught rules. We had snake boots. In fact, in the jungle, my one required piece of clothing that I had to wear and I could not trade for anything were my snake boots. Jennifer McDaniels, why were snakes revered so much in Egypt? They actually were thought they were holy. Yeah, there is definitely some idea with the snake iconography in Egypt and the Middle East. Most of the animals that held certain power or could kill you, where they revered and attributed different types of mythological powers to them, and we can see that in the Bible. They talked about the serpents and Moses and Aaron's rod. They throw it down and turn into serpents and all this kind of stuff. Now, whole nother rabbit hole there. Some scholars believe that serpent was actually a crocodile, not necessarily a snake, but that's a whole different thing. But yeah, that is definitely true. Snakes have always held a position of mystique and reverence in societies. Penny Van, we only have 2 species of snakes that are venomous where I live, and they are rattlers and are very rare and very elusive. Yeah. Down here in Florida, we have a few different types of rattlers. I've never seen one. We got pygmy rattlers and different types, and we have coral snakes down here. So we have some venomous snakes down here too, but just again, like everywhere else, they're not just all over the place. You're not stepping all over them. Just like how it was in the jungle. Yeah, we would see snakes. You'd come across them. And some of them were very deadly, but we were taught how to deal with them and how to look for them and how to be careful. We were taught where they would be and different things like that. Leonard, everything that lives here can bite, sting, constrict, or cause a skin rash. Yeah.
Wow, that sounds like a damn woman. What the hell?
No matter what, it's going to get you, huh?
Crystal's in bed. Anyway, don't tell her I said that. Rebecca's like, what the hell, Grizzly?
Rebecca said I couldn't sleep for a month after we moved here, and I saw cockroaches. Oh my gosh!
Hey,
let me talk about
west and go to Arizona, man. Those damn things sound.
Listen. We had roaches down in the jungle that could be as long as your hand.
Oh hell no!
And the most terrifying thing about them is they flew. They were flying roaches, and you could hear them coming through the air like a freaking B-52 bomber. Oh, man, when you heard that sound, you were looking because you did not want to get pegged in the head and get one of those caught up in your hair.
All right. Before we wrap up, I'm going to ask you this question.
Sure.
All right. Jennifer, we have pistol-packing vipers in East. Yeah, I know. So, I don't have pigs where I'm at.
Okay.
So I'm going to try some pig attractant.
Okay.
What's that going to attract?
I have no idea.
Neither do I.
That's an interesting thing.
Do you think it's going to attract any Bigfoots?
It's going to be an unfamiliar scent for a lot of creatures.
I know, right?
But at the same time, I'm sure you have farms with pigs in the area.
No. Mm-mm.
No farms at all with hogs or nothing.
No. Mm-mm.
I think something that's a predator, it will attract. So whether it is Bigfoot or whatnot, I think it could definitely be a possible attractant because they tend to be more curious, and pigs are a known food source.
I know.
Many
So when I get
stories.
back from the LBL, I'm gonna slop some on some tree. I actually was gonna
Bring
take
some
it to
with
the
ya.
LBL. I made that announcement. People were like calling me like,
Grizzly, you better not. You better not do that.
They were flipping out. I got calls for a damn week. So growing up remotely, Mountain, South Carolina, I always looked when I stepped for copperheads. Yeah, I know,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
Rebecca, they fly here? What, the pigs?
I think
where
the
you live,
cockroaches
I'm
she's
coming.
talking about.
Oh, I was like, I'm coming. I got to film this.
Yeah.
So
So where we were at, one of the most dangerous snakes that we had to worry about was a bushmaster.
I got a couple
bushmaster.
of those.
No. I mean the snakes.
Oh.
And in Colombia,
like, got what? If you don't know what a bushmaster is, they go pew pew pew.
Yes. Where we were at, they called them mata caballo in Spanish, which basically means horse killer.
Oh,
and
wow.
The venom from a bushmaster is strong enough to take out a horse, which is a lot. And we had to watch them. They like the open fields where we were at, like the horse pastures. So we always made sure that we were very careful out in the horse pastures and stuff. That was the main venomous ones that we worried about because they were common where we were. We had coral snakes, but coral snakes are just, yes, they're highly venomous, but they're not dangerous. They have very small mouths. They're rear fang snakes, so they can't just like smack you. Yeah, exactly. Mata caballo. Jennifer, I have a nightmare from, Jennifer, we're going to have you come on and we're going to discuss that. When I think we maybe mentioned it last time you were on the show. But we're going to get into that one in depth because that's an amazing story.
So Penny Van asked, do they sell hogs?
Yep.
Penny Van.
Yeah.
This pig attractant, you need to look it up. I mean, you put this stuff on a tree, they go nuts. Mm-hmm. They tear the hell out of that tree. Like it. I mean, think about CRACK. Okay. Mm-hmm. It is worse than that to a human being, to these pigs. They can't get enough of it.
Is that what you're going to use as a pig attractant, or are you going to use an actual pig smell?
No, I mean, you buy this stuff and it's like syrup. Okay. It's like molasses, and you pour it, and you pour it on a tree. Man, they tear the hell out of that tree. They can't get enough of it.
Yep.
So I don't have pigs. So I mentioned this about a month ago, and I thought, man, I'm going to take this down to LBL because they got pigs down there, and I'm going to put it on people's trailers and tents. And man, people are like, the hell you are.
Listen. Guys our age are still remembering certain scenes from the movie Old Yeller, man. I don't think you're going to be messing with them hogs like that. Old Yeller episode.
Keep 50, 70 tents of people screaming in the middle of the night. Anyways, I'm not doing it, but
listen, you need to get some of your audio equipment down there.
Don't give out my secrets.
Okay. We won't talk
don't
about
it
it
because people are listening. So, because I got a call blaster, but anyway, so I'm buying this stuff. I'm gonna have it shipped while I'm gone. And when I was at college, the palmetto bugs scattered everywhere one night. You walked in, ooh, yuck. I know what pig farm. Pig farm. Yeah, I know what pig farm smells like. Oh, yeah. Down to Lake at Rough River, they had one. Mm-hmm. But wild hogs are not no joke. And that's why when you go pig hunting, you got to have somebody go with you, because if you miss, you're in trouble.
Ooh, I got a story about hog hunting.
Yeah, I did want to put it on tents. That is funny because I wanted to film it. But people got upset. I'm not joking. I mean, I got some nasty calls on
I bet
on FaceTime and messages like, "Damn you, Grizzly, you better not." Because they were like, that will stain my tent.
Are you there to research, or are you there to not? I mean, come on.
You know what? I mean, wouldn't that be funny? I mean, 5 years from now, you'd be like, that damn Grizzly, you wouldn't believe what he did.
That would be a
But,
great story.
yeah, it
Absolutely.
would be. But man, so I'm not doing it. Hands down, I'm not going to do it. But I am going to test this theory because I even talked to some guys that has their own shows on Tubi and stuff. They're
Yeah.
like, damn, I never thought of that. I'm like, I know. So I'm going to put it to the test.
Yeah.
I'm really going to try it and see what happens.
Well,
Because
I think
we don't know what's out back of my house. I have no idea. You
No.
know, so Penny Van G next who spread that stuff on people's cats and sleeping bag. No, I wanted to put it on their tents. Oh, cats. I mean cots. I was like, why would I put it on somebody's cat? Oh my God. Blame it on my trifocals.
My goodness.
I was like, how the hell
that's
would I
terrible.
catch a cat? I was like, why would she say cat? Cots. Yeah, Penny
I don't
Man,
know,
thank
but
you.
I could see it.
But I'm going back to the LBL, I think, in June. And listen to this. I didn't get to tell you. So allegedly, there is somebody that's still alive that responded to the incident back in the 80s. That was on the police department. And he is supposed to go on record and tell me his side of the story.
That would be fantastic.
I got a new camera being shipped from UK. It's a commercial camera. So FDL upgraded their cameras and he wanted me to buy his other camera. I'm like, I don't need it. I don't film anything. Well, the other day we were talking. He was like, yeah, I still got my camera. I'm like, I'll buy it. So he already shipped it to me. So, so yeah, so it's interesting.
That'd be great because
a very big agency he worked on too.
Well, the only where most of the information comes from was from a lady that ran a gas station that supposedly overheard two police officers talking and then got the story from them. Is kind of how the whole thing originated. So it'd be absolutely fascinating to hear if we could actually get from an actual law enforcement officer and see what's corroborated and what's not. You know, I think that'd be absolutely amazing.
Oh, it's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
Especially the agency he worked for. So, and we're going to meet.
Nice.
At the LBL.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yes. So, I've got the guy that's arranging all this. And he actually called me up and he was like, hey, he's like, I got somebody I want you to meet. And I'm like, I hear this all the time. I'm like, I'll meet anybody. I'll go anywhere. Right. And I say this on record. I will go anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. I will investigate anywhere. You send me an invitation. I'll work it out with you. You want me to go Bigfoot hunting, investigate? I'll go with you. Just give me a time and date and I'll work out the details. I'm not afraid to travel. You know, I just need to know ahead of time. And he told me, and I'm like, shut the front door. He's like, no. I'm like, how old's this guy? And I'm like, damn, he is old. And I was like, what department? And I was like, well, how did he? And he was like, then he told me what agency and what he was working and how he responded. I'm like, hell yeah, I want to meet with him.
Right. Yeah.
So
yeah,
he's going to go on record. And I'm like, oh, hell yeah.
Like official record or like anonymous record?
No, I'm filming him.
Nice.
I am filming him. So whatever he's going to say is going to be on record. And I'm like, so what happens if this guy vouches for everything? Yeah, it is exciting because this is going to be either he's going to tell me the truth or he's going to say the opposite. But here's the problem. If this guy contradicts everything, how can I prove him wrong?
Well, we also know, Grizzly, that your training and your ability to detect the BS.
Well, that is true. And I will put the screws to him. Do not think I won't.
Exactly. Who better to interview a guy, no matter what he says, no matter which side of the story he goes for, than you? Because no matter what story he's giving, you'll be able to differentiate if he's being truthful or not.
I will say this. If he did work for the agency he worked for, and if let's say he goes against the story, let's just say if he does, I'm gonna see if he'll take a polygraph test. I'll say it right now on the air. I'll see if he'll take a polygraph test.
There you go.
Because if he says no, then what does that tell you? I know a polygraph test is not admissible in a court of law. However, the new polygraph test that's been out the last 20 years will tell you if somebody's being deceitful,
right?
if the right examiner is asking the right questions.
Right. It's not like the old ones that are
is willing to go back to LBL, witness a dogman attack. I'll never go back. So what's interesting is that the guy that knows this guy, they were talking. And they were like, hey, this guy is in law enforcement too, but he got hurt and he had to retire early. And he's like, oh, that's great. He's like, well, this guy's in Bigfoot and Dogman. And the guy's like, what?
Mhm.
And that's how the conversation started, because this other guy is a paranormal investigator. And that's
Okay.
how the story started, the conversation started. And they were going to go on a paranormal investigation together because he's into the paranormal. And they were like, hey, why don't y'all two get together? And they were like, hey, I want to talk to Grizzly. And that's how it started. So we moved my LBL trip with him from the end of April till June. So now I'm going with the Old Bear to Ohio, to the state park. And we're going to go squatch hunting or investigating up there in April. So I got 2 trips in April, one trip in May. I'm going to Michigan, and I'm going to back to the LBL in June. I think I'm going to try to schedule. I need to go to Harlan. We're getting a lot of reports. Yeah. So I have access to polygraph tests because of my law enforcement connections, and with other people like Leonard and some other people wherever you're at in the United States, we can pretty much make phone calls. And a lot of people probably won't charge because a lot of polygraphic examiners like to give the test. Some may charge because it is time consuming. And some people may be like, come on, really? Bigfoot or whatnot. But other people are into it. But however, it may be just like the guy that was bad mouthing the 2 people that was allegedly on the department when that happened. I can't remember their names. Forgive me. Saying that, calling them liars and bad mouthing them and trying to ruin their reputation. I wasn't down with that. And I said 2.5 years ago, and I said it this year. Yeah, I said it this year, take a polygraph test. I put him on notice twice, and I never heard a response. Because even D.A. Roberts said the same thing. It didn't add up. The story didn't make sense, and so forth. So, yes, Jennifer, absolutely. Go ahead. Polygraph test is it's not a weapon, but it will tell me and tell us if the person is telling the truth or not. It will tell deception, and it's very accurate. So, if he fails, that would not look good on him. No, it would not. But if you are a liar, a person that's not telling the truth, you will not take the test because you know you're not going to pass it. And if you never took a polygraph test, they prep you first. You will know the questions they will ask you beforehand. You don't never go into a polygraph test blind. So I will state that again. You never go into a polygraph test blind. They will read you the questions up front. That's where they prep you to let you know what you're going to be asked. They also ask you general questions that they know is the truth. Your name, your age, where you were born, and so forth. Your general questions. That's how they get the norm. Then they ask you a set of questions that you already know beforehand to see how you're going to respond. But the technology they have, it's very easy to tell if you are not telling the truth and being deceitful. Chris, are you using your brain as the weapon? I have been trained. I have taken the Quantum Co. FBI course when I was on county. Very interesting course. I took the Homeland Security course. I took the ATF course. I took Wicklander and Zoolander course. I took taken 2 other civilian classes I had to for private companies. And there's another course I took with law enforcement. So I'm very well trained when it comes to detecting deceit. I probably have over maybe 7,000 interviews underneath my belt. That's with law enforcement and in the civilian world. For the civilian world, I did a lot of workplace violence, suicide ideations, and so forth. I did a lot of handwriting analysis. It's not hard once you're trained. Have you heard the Goat Man Louisville? Yes, I have, Jennifer. What's his name? Squatch Man. I can't remember his name. He's got the big
Greg
beard.
Yost.
Yeah, Greg Yost. Greg Yost, 3.5 years ago, was in downtown Louisville, and he was visiting a friend. And a guy was screaming, "Oh my God, oh my God, the Goat Man was here. The Goat Man was here." And Greg was like, "What the hell are you talking about?" You know how Greg is, right? Big, lanky, tall country boy. You know, what are you talking about? What's the Goat Man? You know, Greg, good old guy, right? He'll give his shirt off his back.
Oh, yeah. Greg is great.
They followed these tracks. Ladies and gentlemen, these tracks went down through the creek bed. And Greg was like, "What in the hell?" And so I got Greg on the show, and he casted the tracks. And I've never seen nothing like this. And Greg went to DNR over in Indiana, and they showed him the tracks. And the DNR was like, "What the hell is that?" And Greg's like, "I don't know. You tell me."
Yep.
And they're like, "Well, those are cow tracks." And Greg's like, "No, they're not." So he went to Fish and Wildlife. They wanted them. And Greg's like, Well, Greg casted extra ones. He thought he was going to get confiscated. Well,
Right.
Greg pulled them out of his cabinet. And man, they are huge. And that is not a goat tracks. I don't know what the hell made them, but it's not human, and it's not an animal. Matter of fact, I will get with Greg Yost and have him on our show. And
That'd
see
be
if he
great.
can't come on the show. He is down to earth, good old country boy.
I love Greg.
The problem is he's half deaf and he hollers. You can't ask questions because once he starts, he just rolls. He can't smoke, and he's a smoker, a habitual smoker. I'm a chain smoker, right? But he's down to earth. Yeah, Jennifer, Greg Yost. I love him to death. I haven't talked to him in a while, but I'll reach out to him. But yeah, so that's what we got up our sleeve right now. But I love Greg to death. Wonderful
Speaking
guy.
of Greg, it's been a while since I've heard about him, but he was talking about how a certain male soap company reached out to him.
Yeah, Squatch soap.
Dr. Squatch soap. He was the
Dr.
Squatch man,
Squatch.
and I haven't heard what happened with that. That was last time I actually had a conversation with him was about that.
Yeah, so he got a bar of soap. And he's like, "What the hell?" You know. I mean, he's just a good old guy. And if you never heard his Squatch encounter,
he's got amazing
out of this world. You know, he was down on his luck, and I ain't gonna tell the stories. I want him to tell it. Yeah, but you know, half crazy story. You know, I mean, it is crazy. I mean, he's nuts. I mean, when he went back, it's nuts because he wanted his cooler and his chair. I would have been like, screw it. The damn thing could have had it. But he pleaded with it. Don't hurt me. I just want me. Anyway, I don't want to tell his story. Good guy. No, we don't have moose, but Henry, that's almost what it looked like. But the Kentucky Fish and Wildlife, when Greg showed these tracks to them, Greg thought that they were going to confiscate them. So Greg actually made extra because he was afraid of that. And Greg's hands is huge. I mean, Greg is probably
he's a monster of a dude.
6'6". I mean, Greg is tall, but he's got back problems. I mean, he worked hard his whole life. Yeah. And Greg goes over in Indiana a lot. And Greg, he calls them forest people, right? Yeah. And Greg will sit down and be like, "Hey, forest people, I'm here." He's got a gifting spot. He'll take people. He'll be like, "Forest people knock over a tree." Ladies and gentlemen, these damn things will knock over a tree. Yep. Or crash. Yep. Thank you for. I mean, this is how I'm not joking.
No.
And Jason Kinsey.
I've heard from a lot of people that have been out with Greg,
Yes.
and a lot of skeptical people.
Yes.
A lot of
And-
skeptical people going, there's no way. I mean, they're
No,
Bigfoot people, but they're
I mean-
skeptical of what his claims are, and they'll
He
come
needs-
away going,
buys
he's
donut.
legit. He's 100% legit.
You know how you buy donuts at a deli? It's in a hard plastic and it's got that paper. He'll buy that and put it on a tree stump with other stuff, and they will tear the paper. You know how it takes us I mean, it's just amazing. Jason Kinsey did an episode. I can't remember which one it was, and they got fingerprints, and they took like 3 donuts out. Jason lost it. They get eye shine all the way around the camp, and they just go out there and build a bonfire and just sit and talk, and the Bigfoot just come up to them. That's how much he's got them trained. It's just crazy. So the Amazon truck would be in Grizzly's back. Amazon people hate me. I mean, they do. Did I tell you they asked me if I was running a business out of the house?
No, because of all your camera orders recently.
Yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, I'll reach out to him, and he was in the Navy, I think. I think he was in the Navy, wasn't he, for 10 years, 10.5 years?
I know it was a branch of the service. I don't know which one.
Yeah, I think it was the Navy. But Greg's a good guy, and if you go out there on the YouTube, and I think you type in Greg Yost, you can. I think the episode's out there. I don't think I deleted it by accident. But I'll reach out to Greg this weekend and see how he's doing, and we'll get it set up. And so, but yeah, good guy.
Yep,
absolutely,
like Greg.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully, y'all enjoyed the show. I'll get the pig attractant on order and see what happened. Or what's going to happen. Wasn't Greg in here? Ogles? Did I see Greg Ogles in here?
I didn't see him.
In another show? Man, I must be losing it.
Yeah, I didn't see his name at all here tonight.
Oh, okay. It was on another show. But yeah, I'll reach out to Greg Yost. And but no, I mean, what? Man, I don't know, man. It's going to be interesting to talk to that guy about the LBL incident. I'm really stoked. Yeah. I really am stoked. So, because I don't know what's he going to say. I really don't.
Right. That's the great part. There's something exhilarating about coming across a new person, a new story, a new event, because it's exactly that. You don't know what's going to come out. You don't know if it's going to be new information or blow your mind, or you have no idea.
No, I don't.
It's part of the chase, isn't it? It's part of the addiction of what we do.
Yeah. And you know what? And I don't mean to say this ill will or anything, but somebody asked me off the air, why now, Grizzly? And I said, it's getting to that age.
Yeah, exactly.
Think about it.
That was my first thought.
Yeah.
The ramifications, any negative ramifications are kind of mitigated at this point.
And the person's getting to the age now where how much longer do I have to live? I don't mean to be ill will or think that way, but it was just like, the way that it came across to me that how much he wanted to talk to me, it's just like, anyways, ladies and gentlemen, coast to coast around the world. Good night. Catch you on another show.
Everybody.
Bye-bye.
It's a grizzly.
Should we get out of here?
No, we're gonna watch and listen.